Well, it's opportunity cost drives the whole thing, right? If
Sure.
you're
Okay.
if you're allocating your resources to addressing one risk, you're necessarily not allocating it somewhere
Right.
else. And so, going back to Kip Viscusi, who I mentioned earlier, I think he coined the phrase risk analysis, where
Yes.
you're trading off on these two different risks.
Right.
And I think that's in the big picture, it's a very, very large thing that we're kind of ignoring. But
Sure.
it's one of my studies I published in Review of Economic Dynamics back in 2020 looked at the opportunity cost of regulatory growth, regulatory accumulation over time, in the
Yes.
sense that we looked at how new regulations would deflect business investment.
Right.
Deflect them, meaning instead of investing in new buildings, new machinery, R&D, those sorts of activities that ultimately drive productivity growth and long run economic growth. Instead, those resources would be allocated to regulatory compliance, for
Right.
example. And so now you have this trade-off, and in a sense, it is a risk trade-off.
Sure.
You're not talking about specific hazards. In this case, you're comparing opportunities, but that's the same sort of analysis. And so when we put my data, I talked about earlier, the
Of
number
course.
of restrictions as they grow over time into this model, look at how they affect or excuse me, business investments, and then in the long run, lower productivity and lower economic growth. It's that $4 trillion number. We
Right.
find that GDP growth is slowed down by nearly 1 percentage point per year. If you went back and held the level down to what we saw in 1980, didn't let regulations grow, instead flatlined it,
Right.
right? Then we would have had an economy 25% larger than what we actually did have by year 2012. So
Wow.
there's the $4 trillion number. It's so how do you operationalize this at the individual level for every regulation is a tough question, but in the big
Right.
picture, it's really important.